Good afternoon, and welcome to our Cybersecurity, Disaster Recovery, and Business Continuity series for small business. My name is Robert Trimbath. I am Vice President of Technology Services for Quasar Data Center, and I thank you for your time today. We should be about 45 minutes or less. We'll have time afterwards for questions. Please note that we are recording this session for further view, but we will be excluding the question and answer session at the end for copyright purposes. So with further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our presentation. So let's talk about ransomware and how it's different from malware and virus infection. So in 2017, ransomware was responsible for about $6.5 billion in damages. Now, we just got the numbers for 2018, and it is absolutely scary because ransomware is completely preventable for the most part. And I don't mean it's not completely preventable, but I'm going to say that there's a lot of things we can do to prevent how it gets into a system and the damage it causes. And there's no reason people should have to pay to get their data back. Let's just say that. But there are other aspects of ransomware that are coming into the scenario in 2018. I'll explain those in a little bit. So in 2018, it was responsible for 12.2 billion. Now, that is almost double prior to the year before. And what that says is people just aren't doing enough to prevent it, and criminals are and hackers are capitalizing off people's inability or naiveness to deal with these situations. And we're going to talk about how they get in. We're going to talk about the different type of methods they use to get in, and we're going to talk about different prevention methods that are more effective than others. So we're also going to talk about what the difference is between ransomware, malware, and virus infection. So ransomware is created and distributed with the intent to hold your company hostage. It basically encrypts your data. They charge you they tell you have to pay to get a key to unencrypt your data. The larger the company, the larger the fee. There is another factor that's coming into the ransomware scenario, that they're not just encrypting the data, they're actually taking their time. In other words, they get into your system and you don't know they're there. They copy the data. They don't just encrypt it, they copy it. And now they are actually doing something new, and that is they are threatening to release the information into the public world. So if you are a company that is restricted by HIPAA or PCI compliance rules, you've got a major problem. And this now you've got an additional reason. Let's say you've covered your rear end, you recover everything from backup, you haven't lost anything, but they still have a copy of your data. So they have now gone to extortion. That is the new thing that is happening with ransomware. Even more important to prevent now, because let's put it this way: if you're not supposed to if you're supposed to comply by privacy rules and you're not, and that information gets public, you're talking about lawsuits, probably going out of business. It's a big deal. So it's important that the things we're going to cover today, it's very important for you to listen to them and take them seriously. When we come down to malware, now malware was just meant to run in the background, to collect information, passwords, IDs. It was never meant to do the things ransomware was. It was about stealing access to other things like your bank accounts, your credit card. And it was meant to steal financial information. Viruses were mainly kind of a claim to fame thing. It was about disruption, taking down machines, crashing machines, taking hackers to take credit for, hey, I took this offline, or I took this website offline, or I had all these botnets and I took a website down with a DDoS attack. And it was almost a game to them when viruses came out, to be disruptive. And of course, it caused financial harm and things like that. And there are some that were written to do what malware does. But so it started with viruses, then rootkits, and then malware, and then ransomware. And so now we're in these. And now they're hijacking websites to inject any one of the above. So does a firewall protect me from these threats? To a degree, yeah. It protects people from coming in, but if you click something on your machine that initiates a connection with them, which is how a lot of this starts, the firewall is pretty much negated. And now there are newer firewalls with active threat detection, active threat remediation that will sense these detections, use AI to look for these things, will cut them off before it inflicts much damage. But it's still a risk. And most firewalls that people have are ineffective against this kind of thing. Antivirus and malware will help you with some threats, others it will not. You actually have to have a very strong collection. The one we use here internally at Quasar is a combination of antivirus, anti-malware, anti-ransomware, anti-rootkit, and it also runs active scans in live memory, and it uses a form of what we call an anti-ransomware vaccine. It's kind of like the flu vaccine. It puts in a fake ransomware piece that it controls in order to fool other ransomware into thinking it's infected already. Very ingenious, bypasses it, it prevents infection of the system. Something they came up with, they're the only ones that have it, that's Bitdefender, and an amazing product. One of the reasons why I fully endorse that product. And yes, you can get it for home and small offices other than enterprise. Should you have both a firewall and endpoint protection, antivirus, anti-malware? Oh, absolutely. I would not ever recommend not having a firewall and endpoint protection. Now, having a backup does help. In fact, it is primarily your best defense against ransomware. So you should be doing a backup of your desktops and servers, not just servers, desktops, every single day. If your data is very critical, I would do it multiple times a day. And the difference between a backup, now, I have a different webinar for this, and I will be happy to point those that want to see it towards it. It is about basically educates you on the difference between file sharing services and backup services. And what I mean by that is often services like Dropbox and OneDrive are in cloud, the iCloud product that shares your files between devices. These are not backup services. These are file sharing services. And if it gets infected one place, it's going to get infected other places. So you need to keep that in mind. The difference with a backup system is that backup systems in general, backup systems do a snapshot. In other words, they're not online all the time like a file sharing service is. So it's not live in real time all the time. It's coming online, taking a snapshot, storing it separately, disconnecting from the system, and the system can't have access to that backup without you as a person or a system service activating it to do the backup. So where hackers can see shared file systems and infect those in real time, backups are not connected in real time and they cannot get to those. So that is why it's very, very important to have a good backup method and to be able to restore that. That will be one of your primary defenses if you ever get hit by ransomware, so you don't have to pay to get your data back. That's why I say it's very preventable. If you're backing up good and often, you will not have this issue. So, but it cannot protect you against extortion. If they've copied it, threatening to release it, that's a whole different ballgame. So just making you aware of some of how those threats are changing. So let's talk about how you're really protected. Okay, so there was a thing a while ago in late 17, early 18, talking about how many people got infected with systems that were this is a survey of managed service providers that's professional IT companies that are managing these systems. Out of all the systems that were infected with ransomware or malware, 94% of those systems actually had up-to-date antivirus software, and it was successfully bypassed. 94% of them. Okay, I don't know if that tells you how ineffective that method is against this type of threat, but that's pretty high. So in addition to those things, people that used email and spam filters to keep like phishing emails out, that percentage dropped to 73. So pretty good drop, 21%. And then people who had their systems fully updated with the current updates and everything, this drops again to 94. So that is a 34% or 30% difference. Now, the big thing that really made a difference is running ad and pop-up blockers in the browsers. And this is built into most browsers. A lot of people turn them off. Don't know why they do this. By default, Firefox and now Chrome are turning those things on. That will actually cut this margin all the way down to 20%. This stops infected websites from popping up things that it shouldn't, that look like Windows system files or Windows system messages. It prevents those things from being displayed to users so they can't click on them. So that's a big drop. We're now talking about a 74% drop. Now, it even drops further down to 12% if you take in cybersecurity training. I don't know what none of the above is, but down here, let's put it this way. I'd much rather be in this group down here in the 12% margin than this 94% margin. This is a big difference. And this higher number right here, these are people being fooled by thinking they're protected. And the problem is this software does not protect you against user-initiated functions. In other words, you opening an infected PDF or opening a file you shouldn't. When you open those things, you're giving them effectively permission to run on your system, and there's not adequate protections. So what helps? What are the number one things they are finding? Let's talk about the top three things. I'm not going to go into all five, but the top three things that can help basically take away this growth of ransomware and malware. The number one thing that can affect this, that can actually help, is the number one thing is the lack of training of cybersecurity. By doing this, by training, we can be the most effective. The second thing is by doing what we can to eliminate phishing emails, filtering, things like that, and teaching people how to recognize those things through training. The third thing is malicious websites and ads. Now, I'm going to tell you this is becoming more of a threat than it has been in the past because it's becoming harder to recognize these sites. And these things simply come up from people mistyping. So hackers will register sites or domains that are misspelled domains, misspelled Google, misspelled, speed test. Like speedtest.net. Maybe you mistyped it and used 3 E's instead of, 3 letters instead of 2. And they register those, counting that on some people that are going to hit those things. And believe it or not, a lot of people hit them. And the moment they hit them, the websites are infected and they start looking for vulnerabilities in the browser, Firefox, Google, Internet Explorer especially, or Edge. Those things are anything that integrates with the operating system like Edge or Internet Explorer are going to be particularly vulnerable to these kind of things. Java has been a big issue, and even Adobe Flash. Flash is something they use for animations and websites and things like that. And in the future, the very near future here, Google is no longer even going to allow Flash to run inside its browser. It's basically by default because it's a security risk. So these are things that are these are ways we can help prevent. These are the three things that are probably the biggest causes we can attack up front. So let's talk about phishing a little bit. What is phishing? Now, this is a good example. I get these all the time. So you can see here that this obviously is not from Office 365. It's from here. Both of these are from some place in Japan. It's made to look like it's a syncing issue with Office 365. And they want me to obviously click to recover messages. They look different. This one's got a button. It gives me a subscription ID, which is, BS. It's not true. These links are not, and I'll tell you, the way you can tell is if you just, and this is a big deal. I have my email, my Outlook trained to show me the whole email address, not just what's called the shortcut version, the name. It actually shows me the entire email address. Very important for you to look at that whenever you look at anything that's in question. Just roll your mouse over it and it will if you leave your mouse highlighted over it, of course I can't demonstrate this as a picture, but if you just leave your mouse over the email address, it will actually show you the entire email address, and you can see that it is not real. At that time, just delete it, get rid of it, don't do anything with it. And if you are within a company, report this. You can forward it to, if you have any doubt about an email or want to report an email, you should forward it to your IT people immediately. I got this morning. Let them know. Just because you recognize it doesn't mean that 20 other people in your company do. Very important for you to share this information with your IT company or your IT people within your company and let them know that they have it so they can let other people know. And they can also add these email addresses and these headers into a filtering system to prevent them from getting to other people in the first place. Because maybe you have it, but some of the other people haven't got it yet, and they can stop that from even getting there in the first place. So very, very important, communicating back to those people. Cloud-based file sharing systems are one of the biggest ways these things get spread. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is, again, an MSP survey. This is 26% of reported ransomware infections in cloud applications. We're talking about OneDrive for Office 365, Dropbox, 76%, huge. GC 21. Reason why these percentages are lower is because I can tell you right now over Dropbox, these two don't really have the penetration. Office has pretty good penetration, probably 10 times that of G Suite, but it's compared to Dropbox, which has been around longer. That's why Dropbox is higher. They're targeting the services that have been around longer. That's the same thing. That's why PCs have a lot more viruses out than Apple, and there are viruses for Apple as well as for Linux and other operating systems. So this is just an information to keep in hand, and you need to be aware of this. So these systems get infected just like any other system. So recommended best practices: have a firewall appliance. Do not trust internet provider routers. So if you have Comcast and they provided you a wireless router for your business, don't use it. Go buy your own firewall appliance, buy your own firewall router that you have 100% control over. They use the cheapest thing they can buy, and the throughput is not good, the coverage is not good, and the protection is lackluster. Get your own appliance and buy something that is good. SonicWall, WatchGuard. It's good to have a appliance, period. If you're going to buy a Lisco or a Cisco or a Linksys, that's fine. But I would stick with something that has regular updates and can be done, can be updated on a regular basis as things do change. Have a complete software protection solution that actively monitors for viruses, malware, ransomware, rootkits. And I prefer a cloud-based system like Bitdefender, AVG, both are cloud-based systems. You can pay one fee to cover X amount of computers. These are the same type of systems we use as managed service providers, and they are wonderful. Use synthetic backups that let you restore your files in systems to a specific point in time. Give you a perfect example. If you have a Mac, Time Machine is a perfect example of this. You can go back, you can look at your file system or your files or your computer at any particular date and restore it to that point in time. There are systems that do this for Windows and Linux. Great backup system. It's the best protection against against the things that are out there right now, like ransomware. Having a good backup is perfect. And what I mean by a synthetic backup is a synthetic backup starts from the point you back it up, grabs an entire snapshot, and then records the day-to-day changes. So the data footprint needed for this is a lot less than the old method. Instead, the old method used to be, grab a full snapshot twice a month in incrementals, daily for 2 weeks, and then you recycle them. Well, that's a very old method. Nobody does that anymore. Now we have synthetic backups that will, from the time you start, will keep a rolling set of data going forward based on changes. Use two types of backup as a fail-safe. So in other words, you have a backup that you do locally like this to maybe an external hard drive, but also use a cloud-based backup for your critical data. So things are important. Using a cloud-based backup service is important. And what I mean now file sharing backup service, one that connects, copies, and disconnects, and it's not live all the time. It's not in real time. Either that, or at least keep a backup copy offsite in case of environmental damage to the office. So you should be doing either both or either one of these as a secondary backup method. The other thing you need to do is form a disaster recovery strategy that eliminates as much risk of data loss as possible and document how to do it. Also, it should be tested. Be sure to include how to restore the lost data in the documentation. You never know who might be accessible during a disaster, who won't. You can't always rely on Ted, IT guy, to be there. Maybe he gets hit by a bus, or he's stuck in his home and can't get out, can't help you. And now your business is held up over the accessibility of one guy. Having that stuff documented and having a strategy for it is extremely important. In our data center, those strategies are documented. We have a procedure everything goes through, but we'll talk about how our product in a data center protects you from all this and makes this a non-issue in a little bit. Now, how does disaster recovery protect your business from threats? It's going to protect your company from national disasters like hurricanes, wind, flood, fire damage to your infrastructure or office. It's going to protect you against the malicious cyber attacks, ransomware, and internal threats. And a lot of people don't realize that one of the biggest losses of data loss to a corporation come internally. Not from hackers, but from disgruntled employees where access didn't get turned off and they decided to go in and just start deleting things. Backup wasn't present, and so they got screwed. That stuff happens all the time. I can recall two things in the last 4 years or so that were done by ex-employees. And one happened to pay attention to an admin who came to their desk. They called an admin to do something there and watched him log in and recorded his password. Was able to relay that to a family member who was an experienced IT person. And that experienced IT person got into the company and started fooling with the Active Directory systems, taking servers offline, changing service parameters, being disruptive. It was found, discovered, and it was prosecuted. But I can tell you that there's internal threats are widely more common than the other until ransomware became more common. Business integrity and client confidence. These practices ensure this. It also makes your business more valuable. I have that on as the last item on this list, but I cannot tell you that when somebody goes in to look at a business or evaluate a business or purchase a business, or they're looking at merging with a business, having these kind of practices in place, it shows that you know what you're doing, that you value your customers' data, and you value your work environment, your business environment, and that you're protecting your investment. These things go off very good to potential investors and companies that you're possibly looking at doing business with. It greatly reduces your risk of data loss, and it reduces your loss of profitable production. What I mean by that is the production time of employees actually being able to work. We had a client once that we came on as a new client. This was 8 years ago. And when we got them, they were in 8 countries. They had VPNs to their corporate office. The VPNs were set up incorrectly. So they had 65 engineers who were being paid. These are CAD engineers who are being paid probably 75, 80,000 a year that could do nothing. And it had been like this for months. We came in and just found a improperly configured VPN that was creating loopback. We fixed it inside a day, and these people were able to work again. I cannot tell you how often we find simple things that cause major problems and loss of productivity. That's a lot of people, very highly paid people, sitting around doing a lot of nothing. And that as a business owner, that would make me furious if I had that happen. So let's talk about business continuity. Business continuity basically is backup, disaster recovery, and you've heard of those two, but business continuity is the third step. So we've talked about the first two. The third one being business continuity means that you have no downtime, no production loss, and it's accessible anywhere, and it's a complete solution. In other words, it incorporates the other two. So in our cloud solution, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, we're going to talk about how enterprise cloud and small, and particularly some of the products we sell that are geared for small business, can alleviate these factors, because it includes all three of these things: backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So business continuity goes, if you're hosting with us and we're basically, you're on our cloud and something happens in Houston, fails over to Dallas, you come up in a matter of minutes and you're able to function without losing data, without having any kind of major production loss. That is business continuity. It's meant to reduce downtime. It's meant to eliminate production loss as much as possible and ensure that your business is always able to function. If you're a plumbing, electrician, contractor business in times of hurricane or flood here, I would want that for my business, because those are my times when those kind of hurricanes and those things affect everybody. And my business can increase dramatically during that time, being a service company, if I'm up all the time. If I don't have these productions and I go down, I'm losing business, and my competitor's getting it now because they are up. That's a huge, huge difference in profitability and growth. So let's go on and talk about kind of how business continuity works. So our solution, using we call it Quasar Continuity, uses what we call VM replication. So our data center on a physical server in Dallas, Houston, has a counterpart, a physical server in Dallas, and your servers, those virtual servers, these things that we see here, are actually replicated out to the other facility in real time, or on an hourly basis, or whatever time you designate. So we set that up here in Houston to replicate to Dallas. All your data is replicated from here to there on an hourly basis. That's our standard configuration. It can be done in real time, or whatever method you want for your particular office. In the event of a disaster, the server VMs on this side are spun up on location 2. In a matter of minutes, you're able to basically be up and running using that hour-old backup that was already sent up there. So you never more than an hour's worth of data back. If you're running in real time, you're going to lose nothing. There's a very low monthly cost involved for this, and we can, depending on the type of solution, whether you're cloud, whether you're site to site, we can talk about that offline after the webcast, but that's pretty much what that is. And it's not, because you don't really incur the cost of running those VMs until there's a disaster. So you're paying to reserve this hardware, and you only pay for the time when it's actually up. That's when your cost comes in, but the majority of your costs, but only when that happens. And we have yet to have to do that. It's fully managed by us and tested by us. So basically you don't have any kind of, oh man, did we do it? There's no human element involved. There's a team of people making sure it's being done, that it's tested, that it's working, and if something happens, it fails over properly. Now, what does Quasar Continuity include? Highly redundant server, powered hardware, HP, VMware, Veeam, Microsoft, and NetApp. I should probably have NetApp in there, but that's our storage appliances that use a combination of SSD, SAS, and SATA drives for operating system and application layers. And the same hardware we have here in Houston is mirrored in Dallas. We have a dedicated WatchGuard VPN firewall for all our Safeguard 360 clients. That's basically another product we do for another backup product we do. User definable backup intervals. Now, what I mean by that is that you get to define how often your data is backed up. Our default is hourly. If you want real time, that's fine. If you want it twice a day, that's fine. It's definable by yourself. You have fast access to fail-safe environment in the event of an extended outage. So in other words, if something does happen to Houston, it's going to fail over to Dallas very quickly, and it will remain up in Dallas until the Houston environment is repaired and brought back online, and that will pretty much be invisible to you. Guaranteed uptime and service responses of 99.99%, 49. So we guarantee with our service level agreement that we will be up 99.99% of the time. We financially back that guarantee, so basic our SLA. So basically, if we don't, we refund you for the days you're down. Not many companies will do that, but we do. It includes 24/7, 365 monitoring of your entire network environment, 24/7, 365 support by our people internally, not Singapore, not the Philippines, not India, us here in Houston in our data center. We own it, we operate it, we manage it. It includes backup and optional redundancy to Dallas, depending on what options you choose. Like I said, the continuity is the redundancy to Dallas, but not everybody chooses to do that. Some people just want to pay for the backup that's here as a standard. It includes help desk portal and ticketing, so if there's ever an issue, we have tracking and accountability. And we have unparalleled service from a family-owned and operated business. My own son, my youngest son, works at the NOC and is certified in Microsoft technologies, working on the certifications and other platforms. And very proud of him. He's been working for the company now for about 3 years and is expanding his knowledge and his certifications into infrastructure. So, and he's one of many people who are excited and driven about their job. Finally, let's talk about how being down affects your company, and this will be our last slide in today's presentation. Companies that are down or lose data for extended periods of time or face harsh realities. Let me tell you some real statistics. Statistics show that 92% of small business owners that do not have a backup and disaster recovery plan are out of business inside of 2 months. 79% of small businesses that have no automated backup system, in other words, one that's actually automated, does not involve people, are out of business within 2 months if they lose their data. If someone was to steal and or destroy your servers data without having a recent backup, statistics show that 86% of those businesses will be out of business within 3 months. Can you afford, and this is a question you got to ask yourself, can you afford not to protect your business investment for less than most people pay for a car payment every month? And that's the reality of it. That is the actual hard reality of it. For probably what you're paying for whatever car you drive, you could protect your business from these kind of things. And that's something that most people don't think about, they don't look at, and you should. We have a variety of solutions here at Quasar that can fit any business model. We're a solutions company, not just an IT company. We're about solutions that fit every business model. Be sure to educate your managers on best practices you learned here and share them with your team. We talked about some best practices and prevention methods. We're happy to do cybersecurity training specifically for your company. We will be posting this webcast for if you want to share it with your employees. We have information in a pack that can contain a free guide to different types of threats. We'd be happy to send that to you in PDF form, and things we discussed today and others as well that can help you protect yourself. Consultations and assessments from us are free. If you want us to come out and take a look at your situation, tell you if you have any threats or not, do a free assessment, just text me inside the chat tool and we'll talk about that now. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon. I will be taking questions now and cutting off the recording.